Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Komet and my co-host is Scott Stresser. Hey, Scott.
Hi, Jason. I hear you're heading out tomorrow or pretty soon, going on a trip.
Yeah, it's going away for the weekend here. Gotta just to take a quick trip to Seattle. So yeah, I shouldn't affect the timing on the podcast, but yeah, it's a bit of a whirlwind trying to get it all together. But that's my weekend. How about yours? We got anything good planned?
Yeah, we've got a birthday party to go to on Saturday, but other than that, not too much planned. I am working that day, but Sunday and Monday, I'm looking forward to having off.
Okay, well, sounds good. If you are a new listener to our podcast, Scott, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
So we focus on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We talk about the teams and players from Calgary's soccer community, all the way from the grassroots and amateur leagues up to the university and professional teams.
This week, we're going to talk about Cavalry FC and their match last Friday night against Valour, and we're also going to preview their upcoming match against Forge on Saturday in Hamilton. We're going to talk about Crowchild Classic that happened last week. We're also going to talk a little bit about the women's season really getting on board in post-secondary school. And we got a couple interviews this week as well, Scott. Who are interviews with this week?
Yeah, so we had two quick interviews that I conducted after the men's Crowchild Classic between the University of Calgary Dinos and Mount Royal University Cougars. So I had brief post-game chats with Owen Antoniuk and Gianmarco Plenzik, who are members of the Dinos. And then right afterward, I talked to Miguel de Rocha, who is with the Cougars. So got some perspectives from both teams after that game.
Yeah, that'll be great. We'll get to that in a little bit, but we're going to start off right now with Cavalry FC.
This is Tommy Wilden Jr., and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Last weekend on Friday night, Cavalry hosted Valour in a Friday evening under the lights match, and their winning streak was on the line, and the winning streak is now over. It was a tie match.
Yeah, Cavalry kind of gave this one up in very, well, I guess it's been the way that they've surrendered points all season, but they went up 2-0 pretty early on in the second half, and it really seemed like this game could be a rout. The way they're clicking at the time, it looked like it could be a 3-0, 4-0 game, but they kind of lost focus at the back and let Valour back into it with a pair of corner kick goals that weren't very well defended. And after it was 2-2, they put their foot back on the gas, but it wasn't enough, and they weren't able to find a winner after that.
I know at halftime, I chatted with you and you said, the goal is coming here for Cavalry, and it sure wasn't too long after that when they scored and then they scored again. And then, yeah, right away, as they've happened to do quite regularly, they surrendered very quickly. And all four of those goals happened in the span of what was it? Less than 15 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it was a 14-minute span. So if anybody decided to go for a food or bathroom break during that stretch of the game, they would have missed most of the goal mouth action. But the goals themselves were interesting. I mean, Cavalry's first goal was scored by Bradley Camden-Thewo, former podcast guest. First goal for Cavalry that he's scored in what was his 45th game. Obviously, he's a defender, so scoring goals isn't really his main objective in a match. But yeah, he was clearly excited to open his account. And then just a few minutes after that, midfielder Diego Gutierrez, it looked like he had opened his account with his first goal for the club against his former club. But of course, that goal was ultimately designated an own goal because it came off the post and bounced into the net off of Valour's goalkeeper. But it was a really nice strike from Diego Gutierrez.
And I want to jump in and mention that prior to the match, Scott, you made the bold prediction that Gutierrez was going to score. And well, you're essentially right. Technically on paper, not so, but he did score.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this kind of storyline always happens. Like a player scores against his former club. It just seems to be the way soccer goes a lot of the time. And he has taken a lot of shots this season. He just hasn't managed to keep them down. A lot of his shots are from outside of the box. And they sail a few meters over the crossbar. So but I just had a feeling that he was going to score against Valour. He'd been on CTV the week before. They did a profile on him, and I just had a feeling. So yeah, I mean, it was a really nice volley from him. Did well to connect with it. Of course, if it weren't for the goalkeeper, that isn't going in, right? It's coming back out into play. But kudos to Diego for making that goal happen.
And then Valour's 2 goals, they came in quick succession, and they're both off set pieces.
Yeah, they were both direct from corner kicks. So Raphael Owen scored the first one, just a open header kind of in the middle of the penalty area. I actually missed it because I was tweeting out details about Cavalry's second goal, I believe. And then I looked up and it was 2-1. And then I was tweeting about that one. And then I looked up again and Valour had scored a second one. So I missed both of their goals. I was on the far end of the field watching the highlights afterward. It just seemed like a little bit lazy on the defensive end from Cavalry on those corner kicks.
It seemed like from Valour's point of view, they were, well executed, but the defending just wasn't there. But anyway, yeah, you were right. Cavalry tried to make a bit of a late push, but it just, they didn't break through and get that third goal. So the end result is a 2-2 draw.
Yeah, and I think if you're Valour FC, you can be really pleased with coming home from Calgary with a point, ending their hot streak, right? Cavalry's, I think it was 4 games that they'd won on the bounce before this one, and Valour's been a little bit hot, a little bit cold, and they're still chasing that last playoff spot. So a big point from their perspective. I don't know if you noticed this in the press conference after the game, but neither Phil Dos Santos nor Raphael Owen seemed very happy with my line of questioning about their approach to this game, were they?
Well, Owen in particular, he was that was as close to I've seen at a press conference someone giving you, like, chewing you out. It was mention what it was. You were asking about, has Valour looked at Cavalry's tendency to let in goals after they scored, and I believe he had a rather curt answer, and then you asked a similar question to the coach, and his answer was friendlier, but yeah,
same kind of idea of, it's not about, we don't care what Cavalry's doing, we care about what we're doing, and I wasn't implying that they weren't. I feel like it gets brought up every press conference that, every game that Cavalry concedes a lead 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes after they take the lead, it's a question we pose to Cavalry's coaches and players. So I figured, let's pose the same kind of question to the opposition. And I don't know if they maybe took some offense to it, but yeah, basically they chewed me out for asking a question about Cavalry to the Valour representatives.
I would say, despite that question, I'd say that was the happiest I've seen Phil Dos Santos at a post-game press conference. And I guess why not? It's, I think, the first time since I've been going to them where he's been able to get a point. If you look at the table, Cavalry's in third place, and it's really tight in that top 4.
Yeah, it's not as tight as it has been the last 2 weeks, but there's still only 6 points separating first from fourth. So Forge is at the top with 38. Atletico Ottawa is in second place with 36. Cavalry is on 34. And then York United has had a little bit of a slip up in recent weeks. They're down in fourth place with 32. And then there's a little bit of a gap before Vancouver FC in fifth place with 26 points. So similar to the last 2 weeks. But yeah, it proves that there can still be some jostling for playoff positions, especially the order of which teams are going to finish in the top 4.
Definitely. And actually, I think that battle for fifth place could be kind of interesting because all 4 of those teams that are left kind of have a story of note. Vancouver, second year, much improved. Pacific, a team that you would expect to be better, to be honest. Valour maybe getting a chance at their first playoff spot, and Halifax, who, has been so weirdly up and down through the whole year. They've never really put it together, but they look like they've got some good pieces there.
Really good pieces. I'm still surprised that they're in last. It's the way it goes in the CPL sometimes. Cavalry is still in pretty decent position. There's 7 games left, and their next one is really big. I mean, if they get 3 points on the road against Forge, that pulls them 1 point within the top, depending on how Atletico Ottawa fares this weekend.
Talking about this upcoming weekend's game, the match this weekend is Saturday afternoon, 5:00 Calgary time in Hamilton. They're going to play Forge, and Forge has been very typical Forge. Like, they've had good form for the last while, and they're always a tough team to play, and Cavalry knows them well, and they know Cavalry well.
Yeah, it's another battle between the two top teams in the league's history, as well as I believe the only two remaining head coaches from the inaugural season, right? I think every other club has seen a change of coach at least once. So looking at Forge's recent form, they obviously lost to Toronto FC in the Canadian Championship semifinal. I guess that was just over a week ago. Really unlucky to lose that on away goals, but they followed that up with a win over Pacific FC, 2-0 clean sheet on Friday. We were watching bits of that game before Cavalry's game started on the TV at Spruce Meadows, and we noticed that Noah Jensen had some pretty good moments.
Yeah, it always seems like someone's stepping up there, and well, Jensen's been with them for a while, but he's going to be a pretty obvious piece to watch there. Kyle Becker, of course, is always in the mix, but Noah Jensen seems to have stepped it up, and Forge always keeps finding players, and there's always someone stepping up to contribute there, and they always seem to get the job done.
Yeah, I've been quite impressed by their young goalkeeper this year, Chris Kalongo. I think there were a lot of question marks about if he could replace Tristan Henry adequately, but it seems like he really has done well. Clean sheets in the last two CPL games for Forge, I believe. Other than him, I mean, there's a lot of the same players from Forge that have always been hard to deal with. Players like Alexander Ashinyori Johnson, Kyle Becker, like you mentioned, Tristan Borges, who's dangerous for them. Benny Badibanga, right? He's still on the team. So lots of players that will prove a handful for Cavalry's defense, as well as for Cavalry's midfield on Saturday.
And Cavalry has a few injuries. We got some updates about Mile Henry, and I kind of suspected it was not good, and it's definitely not good.
Yeah, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. actually confirmed to you after the press conference that he was probably going to be out for 2 or 3 months. And you and I were talking about if we wanted to release that news. And then Mile came out with an Instagram post very shortly afterward that his season was over. So that's a really big blow for Cavalry. I mean, he was such a spark plug for the team's offense after he came back from missing so much of the first part of the season. So unfortunate for him and really unfortunate for Cavalry because of the impact that he was having.
Yeah, he's been a real difference maker out there, and they're undoubtedly gonna miss him. But Tobias Warshevsky, he's very close. He might be back this week. I didn't sound like it was a sure thing, and I don't know what the latest updates were at the press conference this week. But he's close, and I think Charlie Trafford is probably quite likely to play. His injury last week sounded like it was just sort of a 1-game thing. So somewhat healthy with the exception of Mile Henry, but yeah, that one hurts.
Definitely. So one last thing we'll talk about related to Cavalry FC before we move on is they just announced some more developmental contracts, signing a trio of players from Cavalry's U21 League One Alberta team.
Yeah, three names. And I'm not going to suggest that I know any of these players particularly well, but I have seen a little bit about them. First one is James McGlinchey. He's a 17-year-old midfielder. I know he was the captain of the U21 team because when I was watching that match online where they played Fulham U21s in Kamloops, he was wearing the armband. He played really regularly, and I think he was, one of their more important players.
And then the other two are Josh Belbin and then Nevin Fefster, goalkeeper from Calgary Rangers. Don't believe he played much for the League One team. Josh Belbin did get 6 starts and 12 appearances in League One.
Yeah, I think Fuster was kind of pushed to the back, when Joe Holiday was at the beginning of the year, he was starting every match. And then there were a couple other keepers in camp that were getting some turns there, but I'm guessing that they think he's got a bright future. I think the chances of him stepping on the pitch this year for Cavalry is can it be less than 0?
Yeah, well,
yeah,
right.
There's a lot of players ahead of him, but it'll still be a very good experience for him, I'm sure.
Yeah. I was thinking as well, all 3 of these players are 17, which makes me think that they've most likely just started their grade 12 school years, right? And what a way to start your school year. You tell your teachers, hey, I might have to practice with the professional soccer team a little bit. My homework might be a little late. I don't know, but it's probably quite the way for them to start their September off.
For sure. And another thing that was announced today, actually, is another member of the Cavalry U21 team, Lucas Pereja. York United signed him to a developmental contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know much about him, except I know he played a fair bit for the team as well. But I think I saw some notes that he's actually from Toronto. When you look at that U21 team right now and who's played on it, I realize that we're just a couple months away from the end of that season, and who knows where these guys are going to go. But a lot of the players have already gone on to do stuff this year. You know, you've got players in the NCAA and USports and signing developmental contracts, and then who were their players at the beginning of the year? It was Chinan Chanda and Joe Holiday. Like, these guys have graduated up to the full team.
Well, I definitely was impressed by their form in League One Alberta, going in as the youngest team, taking on a lot of former pros from the Edmonton teams and as well from Foothills. They really held their own in a tough division. Yeah, it's not too surprising to see that some of their players have moved on already to professional opportunities, but maybe the sheer number of players that are making that step up, it's really cool to see, and it shows that Cavalry U21 did a very good job of player recruitment and signing players that appeared ready to make the step up.
Hi, this is Miguel Rocha, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So as mentioned at the start of the episode, I did make it out to the University of Calgary for the Crowchild Classic last Saturday. Didn't get to the first half, but caught the entirety of the second half. And Jason, I was floored by the number of fans at this game. I don't think I've ever seen that many at a University of Calgary soccer game before. There must have been 400 or 500 people along the sidelines.
How did they fit in that little space there? Because that field has such a small footprint right now. I'm not even sure how that all happened.
Yeah, it's really undersized at least for a rivalry game like this. I don't think it's an issue most of the time, but there's not much space between the touch line and the back fence. So, and there's a bunch of trees, like really big trees in there as well. So sight lines aren't really that great. There's, I think, a risk to players and fans because the fans are only about a meter away from the touch line in some cases. I was thinking about what contributed to such a great turnout, and there's a couple of factors. One, it was a really nice Saturday late afternoon. The weather was perfect. And then two, this was basically the weekend that everybody who lives on campus moves to campus. I think it was the day or two after move-in day. So a lot of students who were probably hanging around campus were like, hey, what do we do? What's going on today? And maybe they were told that, oh, the soccer team is playing Mount Royal. That's our big rival. So maybe they made it out. It seemed like there was a lot of support from other Cougars and Dinos teams. Like I saw the field hockey team there, I think volleyball players, that kind of thing. So there was a lot of support from their Dinos colleagues, but there seemed to be a lot of just general students at the game as well, which was really cool to see. So, I guess we should actually talk about the match itself. It was a 1-1 draw. Dinos, they went down a man early. They got a red card, and I think it was like the 20th minute. So they managed to tie it up shortly before the half, despite being down a man. And then I think the second half was really about just holding on. The Cougars had a lot more of the ball. They're a much bigger team in terms of their physical size. They controlled the tempo and had the majority of chances. The Dinos' offensive strategy was really just, isolated, I think. Like they didn't contribute a lot of men forward whenever they did get deep into the Cougars' half. So the second half, I think it was a matter of holding on, but the Dinos did really well to hold on until the 90th minute. And they split the spoils, meaning that both teams are still tied on points after 2 weekends of league action. As mentioned, I did some post-game interviews with a couple of the Dinos and Cougars players. So I think we should run that clip now and kind of let the players speak for themselves as to how the game went out and how the early weeks of the 2024 season have gone.
We're going to start with Scott's interview with Miguel de Rocha from Mount Royal Cougars.
Still unbeaten this season, but considering they got a red card pretty early, you guys were up a man, had a lot of possession, but what is the thought after this? Does it feel like a missed opportunity, or is it's okay, it's still a point?
Yeah, no, we are happy with staying unbeaten. I think we still could have done a bit better to adapt to the change that happened with the red card, but we still create our chances. We just have to bury them in and, stay together, keep working. It's not an easy game, not an easy field, not an easy opponent, but happy to leave this field with a tie, yeah.
3 matches in, what do you feel this MRU side has been doing well this year? And adversely, what do you still need to work on and improve?
I think we've been great at adapting at different lineups, different change of positions from players. I think we've been good at keeping the ball, at being courageous going forward. And I think we just got to be a little bit more hungry and towards net, being a bit more hungry to score. But I think that'll come with time, and I'm still confident of what we can do, yeah.
The rivalry with the UFC, it seems like there's a great size of crowd today. Hundreds of fans came out. What does that do for motivation and the energy levels of the team coming into a game like this?
It's great. It's fuel to play, to give it 100%, right? Like when you see people supporting both teams and a lot of passion in the sport, like it just makes you want to play, you wanna do your best. So I think it's great for the sport, great for the city, and great for us as university players. Yeah,
there was a lot of added, I guess, storyline when you think of the fact you're playing against Ramon and Moel Gandor and Logan Ellis went over to that team. Did that change anything for you guys, or did it make it a little more personal?
No, not at all. I have extremely high praise for all of them. Ramon was my coach during the summer, so it's all love, right? Like everyone goes their own ways and does their own things. So at the end of the day, it's all love from me, and respect what they're doing with the programs, changing it for the better, seeing a better Dinos team that I've seen before. So
okay,
yeah,
right.
Happy for them.
You mentioned playing for Ramon in the summer. This is the first Canada West season since the introduction of League One Alberta. Do you feel like that will increase the level of play in the Prairies division with so many players, playing competitively throughout the summer as well?
100%. I think we're already seeing it, like I said, with teams like the Dinos growing, us growing, University of Alberta, so many teams that growed out of that League One Alberta, like new introductions. So I think it's great for the city again, great for the sport, and the more opportunities there's to grow, the better. So yeah.
Now we'll run Scott's interview with Owen Antoniuk and Gianmarco Plenzik.
First of all, thoughts on the performance? I know you guys got a red card early, so down to 10 men for most of the match.
Yeah,
it's a very big and physical MRU side.
Yeah, that's the West champs right there, and we held our ground for 80 minutes. Like we're super proud of what we did out there, considering all things that happened. Center back goes down, red card. So I think it's game to be proud of. We obviously want to try and win these games, but like I said, the circumstances didn't let us do that. So to even get a goal back with a man down was pretty remarkable from our standpoint. So
yeah, I mean that team got like 11 clean sheets last.
Oh yeah. So we knew it'd be tough to break it down even with 11. So
yeah,
we took our chances, came to me at the top of the box and just had a go. And FA's up there, first goal for him. So we're pleased for him, and he's off the mark. Mm-hmm. Let the captain say something.
Yeah. This is Marco Plenzik now.
Yeah, you knew what to expect. You don't normally get this many people at a USports game. You can definitely tell the magnitude of the game, and just like kind of how much enthusiasm both teams had to kind of pull out a result today. First 15 minutes, it was tough for us. We lost one of our senior center halves, and then unfortunately with the red card. But you can see the desire from the team to want to respond. And to be fair to all the lads, I think everyone who did the job today was unbelievable. I just want to shout out FA and Dom and Amali. When they come on, they were unreal. They definitely did a job up top, and super proud of that performance.
Yeah. FA scored your goal, I think.
He's rookie coming in. So
yeah,
we got so many good young guys coming through. It's so promising, and we haven't lost a game so far this season compared to last, and it's pretty promising future right now. So we're in just with this season and other seasons, but obviously focusing on this year, it's looking good.
Yeah. There were, I think, a lot of storylines with this game when you think of, Ramon coming across from MRU to be your coach now, and he brought a lot of the staff with him, right? Yeah. So did that add anything to this crosstown rivalry between you two?
Yeah, you can definitely tell everyone's friends before the game, and then once the whistle blows, it turns into an absolute war. But I definitely think Ramon and his staff has brought a lot of quality into the group. They've brought a different structure and organization, which I think all the boys have responded positively to. And you can definitely see we haven't lost a game yet. And yeah, I think it's just we take the result today and we keep moving forward.
Yeah, 1 goal conceded after 3 games. So 3 games into the season, what have you guys done well, in your opinion, and what do you feel you still need to do better at?
I think the positives so far, I definitely think you can see the team has gelled very well this year. I think there's a real togetherness with all the boys. I think we're very good defensively. You can see our back line, we're very solid. We don't concede many. Some positives, some things to work on, I would say potentially going forward, maybe a bit of a pattern play, and then maybe just a bit more conviction in the final third.
Okay. And last question. I know you touched on the crowd size. I don't think I've ever seen that many people at a Dinos.
Yeah, that was my
before.
first Derby game. That was first game here, I should say. So it'd be nice to get that every weekend, but obviously the Derby game. So, you're getting chirped out there, but it's actually kind of enjoyable. So
these are the games you play with a smile on your face.
These are the ones. This is the game you look forward to the most the whole season. So,
absolutely.
And then, glad people could come out and watch. And
5-6 weeks,
and you couldn't meet in the playoffs.
Yeah,
you could.
There's history. Like, I've only been here for 2 years, but I know he's like, they got our number last year, and we've had their number before. So it's a good rivalry, and it's obviously grown through the years. So
the Dinos have done well to sort of keep pace with Mount Royal. Mount Royal is, I think considered to be one of the better teams in the country. In fact, I was just checking, and they are, as of the most recent national rankings, they're ranked number 8. So I think Mount Royal's start's been pretty decent, but I think with a new coach and everything at the Dinos, I think this is a really exciting start to their season.
I think so too, but it's interesting because MRU is a very good team, and you can tell when you watch them. But it is worth pointing out that after 3 matches, they've only won 1 of them. Right? They've got 1 win and 2 draws, and they still have their BC opposition to play. So I think it's going to be a really interesting Canada West Conference this fall, and I'm excited to kind of follow along.
This weekend, both Mount Royal and the Dinos are out of town. They both go up to Edmonton, where they're going to do one of those things where Mount Royal plays McEwen and the Dinos play Alberta, and then the next day they just switch dance partners.
This is Kendall Showers, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So let's move on and talk about USports women's soccer. It really starts up this weekend. Last weekend, Mount Royal played their first match and they lost to Victoria, so they're 0-1. But Dinos haven't played yet. So if you look at the rankings for Canada West, Dinos are ranked number 4 and Mount Royal are ranked number 10. Neither team are in the national top 10. So
yeah, so both teams in action at home this weekend. Mount Royal University is going to take on 2 teams from BC, which will be very tough battles, I think. On Friday, they're going to take on the University of Northern British Columbia. And then on Sunday, they're going to take on the UBC Thunderbirds, which I imagine will be a very tough game for them.
The Dinos are going to play University of Winnipeg on Saturday and the University of Manitoba on Sunday.
I was thinking, like, neither of the Calgary teams last year really made a deep run in the postseason. I believe the Cougars actually didn't qualify for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm sure they'll want to make amends for that this year.
Yeah, and again, how they do this whole thing where they rotate out, they take an quote unquote Eastern team and put them in the Western Conference. That continues on right for Mount Royal this year. So we're not going to see a women's Crowchild Classic this year.
Yeah, which is disappointing. And I know last year, I think when we interviewed Cougars head coach Tino Fusco, he had some things to say about that kind of structure, which is an odd one, isn't it? But We can talk about some of the players, Jason. I know you've compiled some of the more experienced names on each of the Calgary teams here, in with regards to some of the players that will probably have big roles for the Calgary teams.
Yeah, I looked at both rosters, and I don't want to give the players with less experience sort of. I don't want them to be snubbed or anything, but I thought who are going to be the leaders on these teams. And, you know, when you look at the Dinos, they're really, really heavy on fourth year players. You know, they've got some, you know, familiar names for people who are following on the Calgary soccer scene. A lot of League One Alberta players. You know, you've got Katie French in goal, and then you've got you know, a whole bunch of different players there. I think the other notable player, which I think we alluded to, is Ashlyn Phillips, who transferred over from UBC, and Rachel Barlow coming back for her fifth year, and we're also big injury for Dinos too.
Yeah, their captain Sophia Di Giacomo, as I think I mentioned last week, tore her ACL during the League One Alberta season. So really big loss for the Dinos. But as you mentioned, there are a lot of fourth and even fifth year players on the team this season. So a lot of players to kind of take up that leadership role. Other ones to mention, Brooklyn Colvin, Jaden Berg, Grace Moore. Yeah, lots of representation from the Blizzard League One team that Diogo Raposo was also head coach of. So this team, I think, is going to have a really strong season. They've got a lot of continuity, and really, if you think about League One as almost being like a preseason, they've been playing together for the last 4 months, haven't they?
Yeah, that's the thing about this Dinos team, is that it is very connected in with the Blizzard, and these players play together like all year long. It's kind of a similar parallel to St. Albert and McEwen up in Edmonton. There's just a lot of familiarity there.
I am Christian Greco-Taylor, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
SAIT also starts their ACAC season this weekend. They've got a couple matches. On Saturday they're playing Red Deer, and then on Sunday they go to Lethbridge and play Lethbridge College.
Yeah, so I think those will both be some of the tougher matches that they would have to play in their ACAC conference. But interesting things about SAIT are some of the returning players on the women's side. And last year's SAIT team was really good, weren't they? They almost went the whole season unbeaten, scored a crazy amount of goals while barely letting in any, and then, of course, won the ACAC title to book a spot in the national championship, but where they didn't do as well as they had hoped, but you know, still a great season overall for SAIT Trojans.
The one player who really had a really quite notable season last year, scored a lot of goals, was former podcast guest Megan Weeb, and she's back for another year. So and there are a couple other players on that team. I believe Nikki Charlton is back as well, and I think she was an all-star. So they've got a few key returning players, but kind of as how it goes, you know, in the ACAC, they have less third, fourth year players, and some, the turnover is a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I think on the men's side, SAIT has a lot of first year players this year, which makes some sense considering last year's team was, I think, primarily second year players. And they also had a really strong, at least regular season. I recall talking about them, but petered out for some reason in the playoffs. I remember we were very surprised by how their postseason run ended quite short.
Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of turnover there. I believe Sine Hale is back for another season, and he was an all-star last year. And best of luck to the Trojans this year. And we'll try and keep track of what's going on with them as their season unfolds. Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links there so you can buy Scott's book online. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of the website. You can also interact with us on social media, such as Twitter and Instagram, where our username is YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.